Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to the channel for a closed Alpha 8 balance mini patch that they've released, addressing some of the new gods that were added, some Pele buffs, some Afro nerfs, some Medusa nerfs as well as some other balance and bug fixes and general stuff like that I thought I would go over. So yeah, without further ado, let's jump in. Okay, so first up, they fixed an issue where minions were not showing on the Conquest minimap, which is really nice. They have also fixed an issue with Baron's Hysteria, where enemies at max Hysteria were dealing 20% less damage to all targets, not just Baron Samedi. So that is, you know, a bug fix, but also an absolutely massive nerf. I did not know this was how it was working, and that is just completely broken outright. Literally the entire enemy team half the time was doing 20% less damage, especially after you ult as Baron Samedi. That is completely broken, so that being fixed is already a massive Baron nerf in itself, which is obviously good. Baron's pretty broken right now, even after all the nerfs. Probably the most OP god release of all time in Smite 2, I would say. Might even eclipse Poseidon, so that's definitely good to see. Medusa is getting some changes as well, so the ability's pre-fire for Acid Spray has been reduced to better match the animation, and Lacerate didn't have knock-up immunity, it now does. Not sure if that means entirely displacement immunity, because that's usually how it works in Smite 2, so it might not even have knock-up immunity. This might mean displacement immunity entirely, which is obviously going to be really powerful in terms of immuning stuff like Ares ult and things like that. New they have fixed an issue for a missing string table entry for soldier health. I don't even know what that means. They probably explained it better on like other channels and stuff. Brawler's Ruin, they have fixed an issue where the penetration stat was displaying twice. Kaistus, they have fixed an issue where the passive was incorrectly granting intelligence. That's one of the tier 2 items. But moving into the actual balance, so first up, Aphrodite with some nerfs. The stun duration on Kiss is going down from 1 second to 0.8 seconds. So it probably won't matter in terms of connecting her like Kiss into a 3-2 combo. You're still going to be able to do that, but you're just going to be stunned for a little bit less time. Obviously, CC in Smite 2 is generally pretty big, and they probably want to remove it, especially from damage dealers first. And Afro is just really powerful right now. She's definitely released quite overpowered, you know, due to a multitude of things, but a lot of it just being down to, you know, the one relic system and her ultimate being so powerful with so much cooldown reduction and all that kind of stuff. Lovebirds, they have decreased the base healing per tick. Instead of 10 to 38, it's now going to be 10 to 30, so mainly towards that late game, you're going to be losing a lot on this. And they've also decreased the self-heal scaling from 10% into 7.5. Allies already only had 5% in scaling on this ability, so this is just nerfing Aphrodite's healing for herself. And finally, Undying Love goes up from 90 seconds to 100 seconds. Why was this on 90 in the first place? I have absolutely no idea. They should have had the foresight to just make this at least 100 on launch, in my opinion, just based on the whole idea of like everyone only has one relic. You know, this ability is 2 relics for 2 people that last much longer and are better, so you can heal, obviously, in Aphrodite ult, you can't heal in Aegis. So yeah, it makes sense for this to go up to 100. This could be 120 seconds for all I care, man. Like, this is such a powerful ability with the way Smite 2 works. It was always really powerful in Smite 1, but this should be probably higher than 100 seconds, in my opinion, but this is a good start. Next up, we have a Baron official nerf as well. There was that change before, obviously, which is probably a bigger nerf than what this will be, but we've got some direct nerfs to Baron as well. So they have decreased the base healing on Consigned Spirits, once again towards the late game, similar to Afro. It's going from 30 to 150 to 30 to 130 instead. And then they've also decreased the percent missing health heal from 2.5 to 2%. So recently they also nerfed the CDR scaling on this, so that's going to come down as well. And this is good that they've clearly identified the actual issue. It took them a while, but the actual issue, or one of the main actual issues with Baron, was this heal is just incredibly strong. If you're like below 10% health, this thing's healing like 600-700. It was absolutely insane, you know, to multiple allies sometimes. So yeah, this is definitely good. This is one of the issues with Baron, one of the major issues with Baron. Obviously, just the amount of CC he puts out, how easy his combo is, how short his ultimate cooldown was until they nerfed it, all that kind of stuff. But this was like one of the big reasons why Baron has been so oppressive, so it's good that they're finally kind of addressing this. Bellona is getting some buffs, which makes sense. She's one of the worst gods in the game. There's no real reason to play Bellona over a lot of other things in solo lane. So they have increased the slam damage scaling on Bludgeon from 60 to 70% strength. It's now just going to be 70 at all ranks. This is kind of interesting. This is something they introduced in Smite 2 with abilities as you rank them up, they gain more scaling. And to be honest, this never really made a whole lot of sense to me anyway. You know, scaling already scales because you're getting more power throughout your build as you're leveling up anyway. So I don't really think you need to scale it twice. I think it just makes sense for these numbers to be flat. But yeah, ultimately, this isn't going to be a change that matters all too much anyway, because you're ranking Bludgeon first the vast majority of the time in lane. And so, you know, by the time you got any amount of strength online in your build, because base strength got removed, this is going to be rank 5 anyway. So ultimately, this change doesn't matter. But I think it does make sense to have scalings be flat instead of increasing per level on the ability. Scourge, they have decreased the cooldown from 17 down to 13. It's now 14 down to 12. So that is a big buff for Bellona, 100%. You know, especially at the rank 1, 3 seconds off of it. But even in the late game, you know, 1 second off of it is going to be impactful. And then Eagle's Rally, they have also increased the scaling from 50% strength to 60. I think this is fine. This could be 80 or something, honestly, in my opinion. If it is an ultimate ability, you know, it does a lot of other things for you as well. But 50% strength scaling on an ultimate is very low. So I think bumping it to 60 is perfectly fine. Chaac is getting some nerfs. One of the top solo learners right now. We've seen him performing very well in the Founder series. You've even seen a bit of the Chungle coming out occasionally as well, but mostly a solo learner, I would say, for Chaac. Torrent, they have increased the cooldown from 10 down to 6. It's now 10 down to 8. Why on earth was this 6 seconds in the first place? Who knows? I swear some cooldowns in Smite 2, like, they definitely did not transfer the actual cooldown from Smite 1. Some abilities just feel like they have a ridiculously low cooldown. It might be 6 in Smite 1. I'm not entirely sure, because there's other issues that keep Chaac down in that game, and he's got a lot of new stuff like int scaling in Smite 2, but 6 second base cooldown for an ability this powerful that gives you like 50 protections for like 5 seconds. You have almost permanent uptime on the protections that this thing's giving. It was just silly, so this going down to 8 seconds is much more sensible. Rain Dance, they have decreased the heal per tick from 10 up to 30 plus 5%. It's now 8 up to 28 plus 4%, so just a little bit of a hit on the Rain Dance. Cupid getting some nerfs as well. They have decreased the heal on Share the Love from 20 up to 100 plus 10%. It's now 20 up to 80 plus 7.5%. It's a really strong heal. You can do that new trick where, because all the hearts spawn from the same location, you can put your 2 directly on yourself or even on an ally if they don't juke it, and you can instantly get all 3 heals. It's really strong. And of course, with it scaling with int, you know, if you go for a lot of int in your Cupid build, this can absolutely be healing a crap ton. And healing in the game in general is like really powerful at the moment. And they've also introduced some healing synergy items like Rod of Asclepius. And anti-heal is less available than it was in Smite 1. You know, the anti-heal items, Divine and Brawlers, don't have flat pen on them. There's no Ankh Relic. There's a lot of stuff missing. Fields of Love, in a similar vein, they've also decreased the heal on this from 60 to 220 plus 30%. It's now 60 to 200 plus 20%. So again, just taking down some of the power on Cupid's heals. Medusa is also getting some nerfs. Medusa has been incredibly strong, probably one of the strongest gods out of the patch. Probably tied with Aphrodite, I would say. Medusa's been incredibly good with an int build, even with a strength ability-based build as well, has been really good. They've decreased the damage on Viper Shot from 20 to 40 plus 8% strength and 10% int. It's now 15 to 35 plus 6% strength and 8% int. So on base damage, strength scaling and int scaling all just being hit down on this ability, and that makes sense. This is the main reason why Medusa is so ridiculous right now. The scalings on this ability are insane. With like a book trans build, you get a lot of strength, you get a lot of int, and it really scales this ability super hard. And Petrify, they have also decreased the damage from 80 plus 90. It's now 65 plus 85. So the int doesn't get hit too much, but the strength scaling on this gets hit pretty substantially. Neith getting some buffs. This makes sense ever since they kind of like obliterated her build and also gave her some nerfs as well, and new gods have come into the game. Neith has really just fallen out of favor. So they have added 2% strength scaling to the attack speed per stack on Broken Weaves. So if you're going for a little bit more of a strength-based, ability-based build for Neith, or even if you're going for like a standard, you know, attack speed strength build, this is going to give you a bit more of that. Unravel, they have increased the damage from 70 to 230. It's now 75 to 255, and they've also decreased the cooldown to just 12 seconds at all ranks. It no longer has to scale down. And since you rank the 1 first, this is going to be pretty impactful for, you know, the first sort of 12, 13 levels or so. So definitely some nice buffs for Neith there, kind of bring her back into the meta a little bit. New Clay Soldiers no longer proc item effects. Thank God, this is such an annoying fact that this ability procs item effects, man. They added that in Smite 1, but I believe they proc at a reduced value, and it seems like they don't have the tech in Smite 2 at the moment to proc things at reduced value on certain abilities. So like, yes, in Smite 1 this is fine, in Smite 2 it's not fine because it's procking the item effects at full value, and that's just silly. So definitely a good change to see there. Pele getting some buffs. Passive duration from 4 to 6 seconds. That's really big. Pyroclast cooldown now scales down from 15 down to 13. And Eruption, they have increased the knock-up height by 25%. Knock-up height is a very important, powerful thing to change. Knock-ups are the strongest CC in the game. If you increase the height of them, they're knocked up for longer. It's basically increasing the length of the CC by doing this. And they did a similar thing to Susano recently, and it made him feel a lot better. I think this will also feel really good for Pele, and it's nice to see some buffs. I do think she was underperforming quite substantially, though I think once they fix the bug on her ultimate, where her ultimate just sometimes doesn't hit and then stops you from doing things afterwards, it's a really annoying bug. I think once they fix that, that will also help with Pele. Ra is getting some shifts. So Celestial Beam, they have increased the damage scaling from 100% in to 105. I don't know why. I feel like 100% in on this ability is already a lot, but I guess they're trying to shift in more towards mid and away from the solo lane. Maybe this is why they're doing this, because they've also shifted the solo rate damage on Divine Light from 30 to 160 plus 45. It's now 25 to 135 plus 55. So again, they're trying to shift in more towards that int-based mid lane playstyle and out of the solo lane. They've nerfed the base damage, but they've increased the scaling. So for a mid-RA build, these will be doing more, but for a solo RA build, they'll probably be doing less. And they have also increased the cooldown of the ability. In the early game, it's now 14 down to 12 instead of just 12 flat. So if you do really want to get a lot of value out of this, you probably want to rank this ability. And finally, Solar Blessing, they have increased the scaling on that as well from 25 in up to 30 in per tick. Thor is also getting a shift. Thunderstruck no longer procs item effects. I think this makes sense. You get it so often. You can proc it so often. I don't think this needs to be proccing item effects. That's kind of silly. Mjolnir's attunement, they have increased the damage from 50 to 210 plus 30%. It's now 50 to 230 plus 35%. So that's a pretty substantial buff, obviously, because this deals triple this amount of damage when you're hitting the double tap, which is what you're going to be doing basically all the time if you're a good Thor player. So yeah, this isn't just a 20 base damage plus 5% scaling buff. It's a 60 base damage plus 15% scaling buff. So that's pretty substantial. Tectonic Rift, they have decreased the stun duration from 1.2 to 1.6. It's now 1.2 to 1.4, which I think will still be okay in terms of making sure double tap can be confirmed, making sure your ultimate confirms into the stun and stuff like that, and they have a return swing. So I think this will be fine. People have been complaining a lot that, like, you know, Thor stun is the same length as Ymir freeze, which I think is an issue on both sides of it. I think Thor wall probably did stun for too long, and this will probably still be fine for his combos. But I also do think Ymir freeze just didn't last long enough either. Like, Ymir freeze got heavy nerfed when they introduced it, because they did that big thing with Smite 2. Everyone's CCs are getting reduced, and I feel like a lot of the gods that are being brought over now aren't getting that treatment. Thor being a good example. So yeah, I think this is fine. His combo should still be fine. It just means you're still knocked a little bit less. He'll be a little bit less frustrating. And finally, for Berserker's Barrage, they have increased the cone damage from 45 to 125 plus 60%. It's now 50 to 130 plus 70%. So 5 more base damage at all ranks plus 10% more scaling as well. Umoja getting a nerf makes sense. Umoja's been incredibly strong in the pro scene and in high level ranked and stuff. Obviously, Umoja moments, she probably still does very badly in low level play, but she is an incredibly strong character. They have decreased the shield health on Bending Waters, 30 to 150 plus 3%. It's now 30 to 130 plus 2%. So this was 5% max health at one point. They nerfed it, and now they're nerfing it again. And I think this makes sense. This is a large part of why Umoja's so strong. Obviously, the ultimate as well, but this is really big for just like insane amounts of shield in team fights. And obviously, they've also introduced the anti-shield active item into the game recently, which will help. Hide of the Nemean Lion is getting 150 more health. Tier 2 upgrade stat loss fix, they say, but goddamn, that is a massive buff. Hussar's Wings gets 50 more health for the same reason. Mystical Mail gets 50 more health for the same reason. Why on earth they're not increasing the cost of Mystical Mail alongside this, I don't know. Mystical Mail's already such a good item, and this thing having 400 health is kind of insane. Like, the base stats on this item are just nutty, considering how good the passive is. I feel like maybe a cost increase would have helped. Prophetic Cloak is getting a nerf as well. 5 of each prot's gone, and also 5 cooldown rate. This item is super popular in both support and solo. I think it makes sense to give it a nerf. And finally, Ruinous Ankh, they have given it 10 more of each prots, but they've removed the health. Not entirely sure how much health this thing had, but it wasn't a massive amount, I don't think. Maybe 150 or something like that. Either way, it's probably not a trade in the item's favor, so they're nerfing anti-heal a little bit by doing this. Not a massive amount, though. But yeah, that is the big balance patch that they just released for CA8 recently, addressing some of the issues with the new gods and the general meta and stuff like that, with feedback from what's been going on in the Founder series. We do have another small patch to go over here as well that is just bug fixes, so if you're only here for the balance, that's the end of the video, but there's a few CC buffering changes and also bug fixes in general, just in this patch that was released as well. So silences now interrupt pre-fires, meaning you are unable to buffer into a silence. A lot of people are saying, you know, silences, they're meant to stop abilities. Why don't they stop abilities? Is the kind of argument there. And they're still experimenting with this CC buffering system. You know, they've just put it live for CA8. They want feedback on it and stuff like that. They got a lot of feedback that silences probably should interrupt pre-fires, so they are going to be one of the exceptions now, or one of the very few exceptions. Ares' ultimate now cripples enemies that he chains. This is going to stop people from using the pre-fire of jumps and dashes to be able to avoid Ares' ultimate. He definitely did not need that nerf. He was already one of the worst gods in the game, so this makes sense. Oh, and also that change to Medusa no longer matters now. You know, even if she does have displacement immunity on her dash, you're not going to be able to mute Ares' ult with it specifically because it'll cripple you. Hades 2 will now silence in addition to fearing when used on a blighted target will not impact diminishing return stack, so it won't apply in multiple, and this is to make sure that getting the better version of the ability doesn't allow buffering when the base doesn't. And a few bug fixes as well. They fixed an issue with Aphrodite's tether showing us multiple beams stretching into the distance. Thank God, this was annoying. It was causing performance issues. Good that they got that fixed really quickly. Izanami and Thor's projectiles not returning properly. I think I've seen this with Thor's hammer as well. I've definitely seen this with Thor's hammer. Not sure about Izanami, but I've definitely seen some of my Thor hammers just disappear into the void or like hover out and then wait ages and then come back. Definitely really weird. Good to see that fixed. Medusa's 3 missing knockup immunity. We already read that. And then fixed an issue with Neith's backflip riding deployed walls. I've definitely seen that as well. Fixed an issue with console mouse cursor alignment. Console mouse cursor disappearing while hovering UI buttons. Issue with the network indicator icon. That was really annoying as well. Good to see that. Fixed a crash related to browsing god layouts. That has happened to me as well, and added stability improvements. So yeah, there's a few bug fixes as well. But yeah, let me know what you think about this balance. Personally, I think this patch is near perfect. I'm not gonna lie, like there's a lot of really good buffs here for underperformers. There's great nerfs to top performers in my opinion. They're finally hitting Baron in the way they should be hitting him. New war change is really good. Thor changes I think are good overall as well. The item balance is generally pretty good. The item balance I'm a little bit less hyped on, like Ruinous Ankh being nerfed doesn't make sense to me. Mystical Mail being buffed doesn't make sense to me. But yeah, in general, I think this is like a 9 out of 10 balance patch. I think this is really good. But let me know your thoughts down below, and I will catch you guys for another one later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.